All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. So my name is Matt. I'm with WhoIAM. I've been leading Mukil's internship for the past couple of months, and he has done a fantastic job. I won't spoil too much, but before I really get into it, we have a pretty small crowd here, so I figured we could do a round of intros. So let's see. Does any brave volunteer want to start off?
Oh, I'm not on mute, so I'll start you. So I'm Nikki Conlin. I'm the Operations Manager at Oxford Wave Research, and we are delighted to have been working with Ajit and the team at WhoAM by supplying them with our Vocalise software.
Let's see who's not WhoIAM. Emily, you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Emily Paulos, and let's just say I know Ajit quite well. He's my better half, and I had the pleasure to meet Mukil recently at the WhoIAM camping trip, and he seems like a very nice gentleman, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you've done over your internship.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
You're good.
Thanks for joining. I know it's late there.
Yeah, I just want to check how this demo is actually going. So, for the people who don't know who I am, like I am associated with WhoIAM for the past 2.5 years, almost 3, I guess. Yeah, and the previous couple of months back, I have had a chance to work with the Oxford research team to implement the Vocalise stuff, and I have played a small part in that. And yeah, and I just want to know how this actually demo goes and see how a fantastic demo we have. Yeah.
Rodolfo, did you want to go next?
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Rodolfo. I'm working with WhoIAM in the various projects. And I have to say that from the email, the email got my interest quite straight on. The projects do sound really, really interesting. So I'm really, really looking forward to the presentation.
Then Matt, I think you already went. Mukil, you're going to get a lot of time to do this anyway. Mike, and then me, I guess, right? That's all of us.
You want me to go here?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just round of introductions. I gathered. I'm sorry, I'd gotten in late. Okay, so I'm Mike Mitchell. I'm the dev architect here at WhoIAM. Looking forward to seeing the demo here.
And I'm Ajit, head of product management. I guess I know everybody. You guys know us, so we can get started here. Mukil, did you want to take this away?
Yeah, go for it. So just a quick intro before I get going. My name is Mukil, as you guys all know. I'm going into my second year of college in about a week now at the University of Pennsylvania. And I've been working with Matt, Ajit, and Mike this whole summer, and I've had a wonderful time. So I was going to start with the Sentinel stuff, the second project, but I'm actually going to call quick audible and start with the Vocalise login platform. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you guys can all see this properly. Give me a thumbs up or anything like that.
Mukil, are we allowed to interrupt you and keep asking questions?
Yeah, go for it. If you guys have questions, go for it. Okay, so before I show the demo itself, our goal when we started out was to build a login platform that used speaker recognition and speech recognition to kind of be a robust, secure login method. And so our idea was to have users describe images in any way that they want and authenticate them based on whether they are describing the correct image and whether it was truly their voice. And so we used the Vocalise API to check whether each login attempt was made with the correct voice, and we used Azure Cognitive Services to check whether each login attempt was describing the correct picture. So I'll take you guys first through the sign-up flow, and then later on we'll go through the sign-in flow. So we decided that to kind of identify each user, we would have them enter a 4-digit PIN. I'll show you guys what the PIN will be used for in in a few minutes. So just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to make my PIN 3541. I'm going to enter a username. I can make this Mukil test. And then finally, for the sign up process, we'll need a sample of my voice for the Vocalise API to work. And so I decided that 20 seconds would be a good sample to have for someone's voice. And so these two pictures are purely for inspiration. The user could truly be describing their room. They could be singing a song if they want to. So I'm going to record 20 seconds of my voice talking about these two pictures, and then I will submit my registration as a user. So I'm going to hit record. So this first image is an image of the University of Pennsylvania, which is my college. There's snow on the ground and it looks like winter time, and there's a red statue that says love. The second image is the Seattle Seahawks stadium during what looks like a packed game. It looks like it's nighttime and there are players on the field currently. Okay, so that's my 20 seconds of voice sample that I've recorded. So now that I finished that, the submit button has appeared. And if I click submit, I have now registered as a user. So just to show you guys where that information has gone, I have a database set up here. And this last one here is the user that I just registered, Mukil test. This is a link to my voice. That's the 20 seconds I just recorded. This is my PIN. And this is just a randomly generated.
Mukil, I think the screen you're trying to share is not on.
Oh, I know what, 1 second.
You might need to switch it in.
Okay, let me know. Can you guys see this now?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a database.
Got it. So this is, sorry about that, guys. So this is the user I just registered. This is a link to the voice sample I just recorded. This is my PIN, and this is a randomly generated user ID. Now back to the demo. So now I've signed up as a user, and now let's say I come back to this portal 5 minutes later, and I want to sign in. When I click sign in, it's going to ask me for my username. I just registered as Mukil test. And for the sake of this demo, I added a demo mode so that it makes it a little bit easier for me to go through this. But if this was practically used, I would not have this option or be in the not demo mode. So I'm going to keep the demo mode for now. And it recognizes my username, so it's going to take me to this screen right here. So now the idea behind the PIN was that it would help us choose which image a user should describe. So in the top here, you guys see it says, please describe the image corresponding to the second digit of your PIN. So the PIN I registered with was 3541. So the second digit is image 5. And so the demo mode info tells me that, okay, I have to describe image number 5 in this grid here. Image number 5, according to our grid here, is this picture of flowers, our purple petunias, right? And so when I'm ready, I would click the mic, describe the image, and ideally, if the system decides that I have described the proper image, it would move on to the next round. And so we have 2 rounds of the same process. The digit of your PIN that we would have to describe changes every time. It's random. The pictures are also random. They change every time. And so if I pass both rounds of authentication and I've used my voice, I should be fully authenticated.
So Mukil, the demo mode is basically a cheat mode. It's in real life, you wouldn't know that it's number 5 or that those are the words that the system is expecting you to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing it for demo. Okay, understood.
Exactly. So just like I just said, if this was not demo mode, none of this information would be there. Otherwise, it would be too easy to hack. You would see exactly the words that you need to say. And so ideally, if my mom took my computer and wanted to log in, she wouldn't know what my PIN is, so she wouldn't know which image to describe, and therefore she may not be able to say the correct thing. All right, so I'm going to go through this login process one time. I'll do both rounds, and I'll show you guys some of the features around here. So I'm going to click this mic. So image number 5 is a picture of some purple flowers. I didn't know that they were petunias, but the image tags say that they are a petunia. So I've now described the first image, and it's taken me to the second level of authentication, and it says, now please describe the image corresponding to the first digit of your PIN. First digit was 3, so I'm going to say The next image, it looks like a field, and there's a sunrise off in the background, and there's some grass on the ground as well. So now I've been authenticated and I have a Vocalise score of 0. So let me take you guys through one more run through of this thing. I might have spoken too long there. Let me go through one full run through again. So image number 5, I see a bicycle on the sidewalk. It has 2 tires and it looks like it's in front of a building. Image number 3, I see an aquatic bird. It's sitting on the docks and I see some water and some boats in the background too. I think I may have missed it. Sorry guys. Sometimes it is finicky. Image number 5, I see mountains, I see water in between the 2 mountains, and I see a rugged landscape. In image number 3, I see a boat, some watercraft on the water, and I see some vehicles as well. I'm not sure what's going on.
Looks like you're stuck in some sort of loop there.
The demo gods are not kind to me right now.
Mukil, does it just ask you to do an extra layer of authentication if it decides you haven't included enough of the words? Is that how it works? Okay.
Yeah. So if you haven't said the right number of words or it's not your voice, it goes back to the beginning.
Okay.
Let me try this whole thing one more time. I'm not sure what's going on. This first image is a picture of the University of Pennsylvania, and there's snow on the ground. There's a red love statue, and it seems to be December or January or something like that. The second image is a picture of the Seattle Seahawks Stadium, and there's a lot of fans in the crowd. There's also a game going on, and it's nighttime currently. Okay, let's give this one more try. In image number 3, I see a waterfall, and there's a rainbow that's going across the waterfall. There's also a human being standing right underneath the waterfall, observing nature. It seems like he's having a great time. I hope this demo goes a little bit better than the last one. The image number 5 now shows a skyline. It looks like a big cityscape, and there are a lot of skyscrapers, and it looks like a large metropolis. Oh, there we go. So now I went through the whole sign up flow. I signed in properly and I got a Vocalise score of 46.5, which indicates that this is truly my voice. So any positive Vocalise score, anything above 0 indicates that this is truly my voice. I'm not sure what happened with the first time I tried this, but this one worked fully. This is how it's supposed to work. And so this indicates that this is my voice and I said the correct things.
And so are you also computing the number of words that they said correctly using Azure Cognitive Services? Can you talk a little bit more about how those words are generated and what kind of...
Of course. Yeah. So let me show you guys what it's talking about. So one of the essential questions at hand is how do I determine whether the user is describing the correct image, right? So what prevents the user from describing image number 1 here instead of image number 4. So there's a service called Azure Cognitive Services that takes pictures like this and produces image tags for them. And so I fed, when there's an image selected, let's say image number 4 in this case, I fed this image to Azure Cognitive Services and produced a series of tags. And so I've displayed the 5 most what Azure has determined as the 5 most relevant tags for each image for the user to say in this demo mode. So for image number 4 here, Azure has determined that the words outdoor, tower block, skyline, metropolis, all are super relevant to this image. There are several other words that Azure has also decided are relevant, but for the sake of this demo, I've placed 5. So if you were to look at image number 4 and say, I see skyscrapers, even though there are not skyscrapers, skyscraper is not a word on this list, likely you would be okay.
And are these images all random generated on the fly during each authentication?
Yeah, so these images are all randomly generated. They're all different. There's a large pool of images that I'm pulling from. And so the positions and the images should be randomized every single time, and you should not see any repeats within the same sign-in attempt.
Cool. We can open this up to everybody else. Any questions from the others?
Hi, really good, Mukil. Looks very good. And I guess my questions were related to what Ajit was asking earlier about basically being able to get other information. So are you using, is there like, you need to get a certain number of words before you decide that it is that person? So if, for example, in the one that you've got up there, do I need to get 4 out of 5, or did I miss that? Or
so that's a good question. I did not address that. So there are, like I was saying, there are far greater than 5 tags that are produced. And so I played around with how many words seemed like a reasonable cutoff. At first, I started with like 50% of the words, and I realized that was way too much. And so I settled on having, if you've said 3 out of the 5 out of the however many tags are generated, I figured that that was a reasonable cutoff, that you are describing the correct image.
so, I mean, my question is probably related to the logic. So if I only know, if the pictures are randomly reasonably distinct, then if I get any one that pertains to the one that I'm talking about, it's highly unlikely that it'll happen randomly. So would that not suffice?
That's true. Unfortunately, Azure does, like the Cognitive Services API does generate some words that are quite general, that aren't necessarily that specific. So, and like some of the tags may not be that relevant. Perhaps image number 4 and image number 6 both have outdoors in them. They both have some sort of building in them. So it is true that maybe a word like skyline may be unique enough, but I can't necessarily guarantee that. Like if someone was trying to hack my account and they saw that 5 images all were something outdoors, they could say outdoor and pass the test even if they're not talking about the correct image. So I want to make sure that they had at least a few that are relevant.
I think it's really novel that you're using the visual space, because a lot of what we do doesn't. So I'm really like, I think this is a really novel twist on what we do.
And Mukil, we're still running the OWR, correct? Through Vocalise.
Yes. We're still right. Yeah.
So what is that logic, Mukil? Is it, what weightage are you giving to speaker recognition score versus getting the description of the words correct?
I have equal weightage on both. Like you need to pass both. You need to have a positive Vocalise score and have the
more than 50% of the words.
Yeah, so really this is about verifying liveness detection more than verifying that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's both. Like the liveness detection is certainly there, but you still do need to know which image to describe as well.
Well, I think that's
actually an interesting one to get your thoughts on as well, because with speaker recognition, just straight up being able to play back someone's audio, this was what I think the idea was, to use cognitive services to add a layer of, well, is the person really there? Are they able to speak about a random generated set of images that correspond to a pin?
No, I think that's really novel, and it answers that problem quite well. The playback attack is one of those ones that, I mean, it happens less often than you'd think, but it's something you need to answer when people question you about it. So I think this is a really novel way of doing it. Well done.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I'll move on to the second project. So Ajit asked me to research Azure Sentinel, which is a, can you guys still see my screen? Something happened on that. Okay, so Ajit asked me to research Azure Sentinel. It's a new product that Microsoft came out with. I'll take you guys through what exactly it does, what it's used for, and then a full implementation from front to back. So Microsoft describes Azure Sentinel as security information event management, or security orchestration automated response. And to me, that's a lot of mumbo jumbo. And in English, that Sentinel is basically a tool that takes in data to automatically detect and investigate any security threats that might be posed to an enterprise. So data regarding where users have signed in, who is making changes within the sign-in system, that sort of thing. So for example, if a corporation like Bank of America would like to be quickly notified if they're under attack, if someone's launched a DDoS attack against them, or if the Washington Department of Education wants to know if they have a lot of suspicious activity from users trying to log in overseas, and they know that all of their logins typically occur within Washington state. That sort of thing. Sentinel is the ideal tool to notify users for that. And so the use case I was asked to look into is B2C integration. So a enterprise would create they would have an app registered within a B2C tenant. So for example, Bank of America might say, I have a website. I'm asking WhoIAM to take care of my website with Sentinel. And so their app may be registered in a B2C tenant.
Mukil, just to level set, do you want to tell us what a B2C tenant is?
Yeah, sure. So B2C tenant is a tenant provided by Azure that has a whole lot of information about sign in and sign up, user information, sign up and sign in information for apps registered within a tenant. And it kind of allows B2C as business to consumer. So it allows businesses to.
So the overall simplistic way to think about it probably is just, it's a massive database of users and their credentials for when they want to log into Bank of America or something.
Yeah.
Rules around it. Okay.
And so a B2C tenant produces what are called sign-in logs and audit logs for the entire tenant. So sign-in logs keep track of when and where users have signed in from, which users are signing in, whether they failed sign-in attempts, whether they registered for a fresh account, that sort of stuff. Audit logs keep track of which users are making changes to the internal system, to the B2C tenant itself. And so ideally, we would want to send this information, the sign-in and audit logs, to Azure Sentinel. And Azure Sentinel would take this data, do some sort of analysis on it and say, okay, these are the threats that are currently posed to your business. And that information would be sent to decision makers within a company, for example, Bank of America or Subway or the Department of Education, and they could choose perhaps to shut down a system if it's currently under threat, or perhaps not allow any further registrations if they're getting DDoS or something like that. And so my goal was to figure out how exactly do we send this information from B2C to Sentinel, and the second goal was to figure out what exactly can Sentinel do, what type of analysis and reports can it produce, and then how can we use it in WhoIAM to make our B2C product a little bit better. And so the solution that we found was to use Azure Log Analytics, another service that Azure provides as kind of a middleman between the B2C tenant and Azure Sentinel. So Microsoft has provided pretty good integration, allowing us to send sign-in and audit logs directly to Log Analytics from a B2C tenant. And Log Analytics is kind of a data aggregator. It takes data in and stores it in logs and allows you to do anything with that data. It's not specifically for Sentinel, but Sentinel happens to be directly built on top of Log Analytics. It can take information directly from Log Analytics and do its whole scope of whole scope of actions along with it. So this is kind of the flow that I was going for. So for the demo, we'll make up a scenario. We'll say that FIFA has come to WhoIAM and requested that we use Sentinel to alert them of any threats to their app, right? They have an app that they're using for World Cup tickets, and they want to make sure that this app is secure so that they don't get hacked. And so WhoIAM has a B2C tenant that we can use, and we have an AD. An AD tenant is kind of a tenant used for internal information as opposed to the consumer side of information. And so our question is, how do we make sure that FIFA's app is monitored properly by Sentinel? And so I'll show you guys the end product right now. And I also wrote up a detailed implementation guide that I'll share later for future reference, but that's not super interesting for the demo itself. So for part one, I'll show you guys what a B2C tenant looks like. Let me log in quickly. Okay. So this is a test B2C tenant that I created. The organization is called Mukil org. Obviously, this is not a real company or anything like that. And so within a B2C tenant, you can register apps. So in our FIFA scenario, we would register a FIFA web app. And so that means we want to track this web app. We want to track the FIFA web app. And so we would create what's called a user flow that is essentially dictating how a user signs up and signs in to correctly send information to the Azure B2C portal. And so to test that we can sign in and sign up properly in our app, I'll show you guys what this looks like. So I'm going to say run user flow for our FIFA web app. Okay, so this is my sign-in page for the FIFA web app. I can sign up as a new user. I can sign in with my current email address and create accounts that way. And so any sign up and sign in activities that I do here is stored in my B2C tenant. And so if within my B2C tenant, so to track the sign in and sign in audit logs, we go over here. And so these are all of the activities I've done within the last 24 hours. So I registered as a user named Kevin. I registered as myself. And so this shows where I logged into. So sometimes I've logged into the Azure portal. This CPIM PowerShell client is actually the FIFA web app that I created. And sometimes I logged into Azure Logic App. So this is all the information that's stored in a B2C client. And this is what we want to send eventually to Sentinel. That's our goal. So the audit logs are not quite as relevant, but just to show you guys what they contain, this is kind of all of the internal changes I've made to this B2C tenant. And so ideally for an organization like FIFA, they care far more about what's going on in the sign-in logs. So, there are threats that can be determined in the audit logs as well. So that's what a B2C tenant looks like. And so we're sending all that information to the log analytics workspace. And so let me show you guys what that looks like. So within log analytics, if I click on logs here, I can write any sort of database searches, queries, to see what type of information I have. So if I look at all the sign-in logs within my log analytics, I see everything that I had in the B2C tenant. So I can confirm that all of my information has been sent here accurately, and I have access to all of this in Sentinel now. So Sentinel is built directly on top of this information. It has access to all of these logs that you guys see right here. So writing queries within log analytics can help you visualize information, but to truly do anything with it, to truly have insights, you need to have Sentinel built on top of it. So this is my Sentinel dashboard. It's built right on top of the log analytics workspace that I just showed you guys. And it has a very nice graph that shows when I've logged in, when audit logs were created, when security alerts were triggered, and a lot of very useful information where malicious login attempts were made in the world. And so it has all the same logs that are present in my log analytics workspace, and it also has a series of rules that you can create. So this is where the true meat of Sentinel comes in. So as as part of WhoIAM, if FIFA comes to us and they ask us to determine whether they are under attack for password brute force guessing attempts. So whether any hackers are trying to just guess password after password after password to hack the system, I would come to Sentinel, to this page here, and I would create a rule that says I want to detect if any brute force password guessing attacks against an app are happening. And so what Sentinel does is it takes all the logs that it has, runs a database search against it. It happens every 5 minutes. And if the alert is triggered, then it sends an email notification to users that I've chosen. So within Sentinel, you define these automated responses. You can do a lot more than send email responses. You can send text, you can delete email contacts, add email contacts, a whole slate of things you can do. For simplicity's sake, I've set up just email and text. Those are the easiest things to show. But you can do a lot more. I can show you guys what all you can do later on. So I wanted to show you guys what triggering a few of these alerts looks like. So we'll try to trigger this brute force attack against B2C, and then we'll try also to trigger this non-successful logins alert as well. So if I go back to my app here, and I just guess a whole bunch of different passwords very quickly, and none of these are right. And this is obviously a hacker would not be typing random stuff, but in a brute force attack, they would be constantly guessing passwords within a short period of time, and FIFA would like to stop them as quick as possible. So eventually, let's say they get the correct password, they sign in. Then FIFA should want to know whether they've been hacked, right? So I've successfully logged in. I've received this confirmation of my login that's been issued by this our B2C tenant. And so FIFA would like to know as quickly as possible that this event has happened, right? They might have been hacked. So this query, like the quickest you can make the query run is every 5 minutes. So we may have to wait a couple of minutes for the query to recognize that this has happened and send me an email. I think potentially that's an improvement that Sentinel could make, because 5 minutes is a decent amount of time for hackers to do some damage. But this is how it is currently. So the past, while that's going on, these are all the past incidents that I've triggered. This is a log of all of them. So I triggered one at 7:57 a.m. today to test out that this is happening properly. And so any of these alerts that I trigger, I get an email. So let me show you guys in my email. So I configure this message to say this, but you can have it say whatever you want. So I got this email automatically. It has high importance. It's marked, it's flagged as important within my inbox. And it says alert, unsuccessful sign-ins. And so I get this email within 5 minutes of the incident happening. And I would, hopefully for FIFA, this email would go to maybe an admin, the CEOs, the head of the cybersecurity department, something like that.
Mukil, was in your investigation of all of this, was there also a way to, within Sentinel, send email to the end consumer who may have been being breached, where you say there may have been malicious activity on your account, please go change your password? Can you do that?
That's a good question. So I was trying to, I can actually show you guys this. So I was trying to do something like that with kind of conditional emailing, like email only to the person who may have been hacked. And it seems like you have to hard code an email right now, which is not necessarily useful in that sense, because we don't know who's going to be hacked beforehand.
Within Sentinel, the communications are only to the IT professional who's managing it.
Yeah.
They can have downstream apps to go send warning emails to the end user.
Yeah. That's what it currently seems like.
Okay, one more question to you is, can you use Power Platform or something like this in conjunction with Azure Sentinel just to automate few other things in your business? Suppose I'm using ServiceNow as a ticketing system. Can I create another ticket, call another API, something like that?
You can. So I haven't done that, but I read documentation that I think Microsoft just put out recently that you are able to use Power BI and build additional insights on top of this.
And Power Platform?
I think
specifically Power Platform to go do the downstream ticketing.
I'm not entirely sure, but
okay,
that's a good point, Jeevan. I think that's something that will make all of this work together in a real CIAM use case.
Okay, I can look into that actually, and get back to you, Jeevan. So just to show you guys a few other things. So there are these are the rules I've written and are currently enabled. That being said, Microsoft has a number of templates that they've provided for us, where they have written the query logic already, and all we need to do ideally is employ it. However, there are some road bumps that I encountered. So a number of these template rules require data sources, for example, OUSIT for Active Directory, that are not necessarily within the Azure ecosystem. They're not very simple to create. If you have an Azure subscription, you need to go outside of Azure, buy a whole nother product, or start a whole new subscription elsewhere and send the data elsewhere as well. So that's possible to do. Of course, it does require significantly more effort, but those things are available as well. A lot of these are really cool. For example, this one has more sophisticated machine learning based model to determine brute force password guessing. The query I have for brute force password guessing is a much more simplistic version, but these all do exist as well. So it's possible to use all of these. Any questions? Let me see if the alert has come up yet. Yeah, so actually 1 minute ago, if I can show you guys on my phone, you guys may not be able to read this, but I got a text that says alert B2C and unsuccessful logins. So I set that up. And then if I go check my email right now, let's see. I also just received an email 2 minutes ago that they're unsuccessful logins as well. So that's what the end alerts look like. And so you can configure the messages, you can configure the users. Unfortunately, you have to hard code them right now, but that's what the end-to-end Sentinel flow looks like.
And Mukil, I see a lot of different rule types in there. There's like scheduled, Microsoft security, and anomaly. Can you explain what those types are?
Yeah, so scheduled just means that it runs very periodically, like every 1 day. And it's kind of I think it's a simple, so okay, let me be clear. So when you have a Microsoft security rule, there is no, as you can see, there is no duration. There's no frequency and there's no scope. So the scheduled rules are kind of, you determine exactly when they will be run, what data they'll check. And I think the security rules are kind of happen more consistently. They're kind of checked as the logs are created. There is no periodic runtime for it.
And what about the automation task, perhaps, or doing something automatically without really requiring an admin to jump in?
So that would be like the email notifications or the responses after a rule is triggered. So you can, so within the automation tab, if you wanted to create a new playbook, I can show you guys this. You can, 1 second. So essentially, Azure asks you to create what's called a logic app to determine what actions you want to be taken when a rule is triggered. So if I give this, this a name of like demo playbook, and I'm just gonna attach it to the same workspace. So you can define a whole. Microsoft has done a very good job of creating a kind of a graphical UI that you can lay out, kind of like a Scratch sort of UI, drag and drop, where you can create actions that happen after an event is triggered. So if I go within my playbook here and I start with so there are a number of templates, first of all, for logic apps that you can create. So you can say, perhaps when a rule is triggered, delete old Azure blobs. It's not necessarily relevant in this case, but you can do something like that. You can have a HTTP response request. So for this demo's sake, we'll create a blank one, and it'll ask us to choose an initial operation. So what's our trigger? And so if you go down here and click Azure Sentinel, you can say when a Sentinel incident creation rule was triggered. So that's the option you should choose. And so this is, now we can essentially add any events that we want to happen after a Sentinel creation rule was triggered. So, in the simplistic case, if I were to come here and search Outlook, I would be able to choose Office 365 Outlook. And after I signed in, I can do any of these things. So I could create a contact if that's helpful. I could delete a contact, anything like that. I chose the send an email one for the demo purpose, but you can do any of these things and they work well. And if you don't want to do Outlook, you can connect to a whole number of Azure services within Azure Active Directory itself. Actually, you can make changes within an Active Directory. I tried to see if you could block a user, like if a user tries to sign in 5 times and they fail, ideally you'd want to block that user from signing in for some time. And it doesn't seem like you can do that yet.
I think, matter of fact, you might be able to just hit an app service that does that.
Okay.
Written an API that goes and blocks a user for until something's resolved. You might be able to just call into that and achieve the same effect.
Yeah. So that's something to look into as well. But yeah, there's a huge collection of the actions that you can have take place after a Sentinel rule is triggered. So that's how you would go through this process, and they've done a good job of making this somewhat easy to do. Any questions about the whole end-to-end flow?
Excellent. This is very powerful for doing live mitigations of issues.
Yeah.
And you can retrieve the values from that incident, right? So if the incident happened against a particular user, you can able to retrieve that user information also, right? You can.
Yeah, so you can. Currently, like the alert itself cannot necessarily display that information. But if you were to go back to Sentinel and look at the incidents page, you can then identify which incident it was and pick up all the information from there.
Yeah, so basically incident happened against an event, right? And I would like to have an event details into this particular to trigger another thing or pass that information. I was just checking that's possible here.
As far as I can tell, you can't, like that information isn't readily accessible to pass in anywhere else. Like it's only found like hard-coded within these logs.
Okay, okay.
Can I ask you what's the decision-making process in deciding whether it's a high, medium, or low threat? And is there a way of, if it's a high threat, it automatically sends everybody who's on the alert list an email or a text message or whatever you set up for it? Is there some way of saying, okay, anything that encounters that's high, just send me a message no matter what?
Yeah. So the determining what is high and medium severity is kind of an arbitrary process based on what FIFA wants, right? If they're most concerned about password guessing attacks, then perhaps we'd want to make this high severity threat. I think in general, the more sophisticated rules that Azure has, the most accurate ones, maybe it's good to place as high severity, and kind of the more simplistic, like 2 non-successful logins in 60 seconds is something that may not be that high severity. But yeah, there is, so you can certainly have emails sent whenever any high severity alert is triggered. And I think an important feature that they added is also you can change you can flag the email. You can automatically flag the email within the user's inbox. So you can say for any high severity threat, make sure that the email is tagged as important so that the user sees it.
So you as the admin, Mukil, are able to set this B2C non-successful logins to be a high versus medium versus low. And that happens here in the edit, right? Maybe that.
Yeah.
Asking about that. Let's look at that.
Yeah. So just within the first page itself, you can choose any sort of severity setting you want. And it doesn't impact anything other than within the alerts, how you're able to set up the responses and that sort of thing. So
and then the set rule logic is where you specifically write out
the query
that flagging for something. So it's choose your own adventure.
Exactly. So right here, you would choose your own adventure, determine the rule logic. And right here, down here, you would say how often you'd want the query to run. So I tried for this demo to not make you guys wait 5 minutes, to put 1 minute. Unfortunately, it says, you can't run the query every 1 minute. And also a mistake I made, this is kind of a dumb moment on my part, but I think it's worth mentioning, is I originally had this to run the query every 5 minutes and look up the data from the last 5 hours. And so what happens in that case is every 5 minutes, it's going to check the same data from the last 5 hours. So I triggered the alert one time and then got a text every 5 minutes for the next 5 hours. And I was wondering, like, what's going on? Is someone trying to hack me right now? And then I realized that, this is something that you should watch out for. So ideally have these two at the same scope, or perhaps even have this at like 10 minutes. And actually that would not be great either, but have it at ideally equal times, so that, you're not getting repeat alerts for the same incident. And then over here, you add, so when I define the email response automated playbook, when I create a rule, I then add that response here. And so that says, when this rule is triggered, follow this automated playbook, send the email.
One of the things I think could be interesting for future work is figure out if a tenant is under breach, or if there are specific attack patterns happening, to elevate the level of regular sign-in. So for example, if you weren't always doing MFAs, you switch over to doing voice biometrics based authentication every sign-in. If you're looking at a highly attacked tenant, even if it's for a day when they're being massively hit, like FIFA during launch, and then you might taper back down or something like that.
That's a good idea. I actually...
So you could blend the two things you did in your internship into one use case.
That's a good idea. Maybe could we suggest that to Microsoft?
I think you'd be able to do it already. Again, our here that we're seeing is that you're able to use pretty much everything in Azure's fleet as a response to a trigger. So it's not
let me try.
A trigger, you can make a call to a service or to B2C or a lot of different endpoints. So perhaps
that makes sense.
To swap out to a higher MFA requirement.
Makes sense.
Multi-factor authentication requirement. Yeah.
Any other questions?
If there are no questions regarding Sentinel, I do have a question regarding the first project.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so based on everything that you've seen and based on all the work that you've done, which is really cool, what would you say is the next step within that line, within that project of voice recognition? Something that could position this product above all of the other similar technologies that you have seen?
It's a good question. So I think one of the things that we struggled with is initially we were trying to make this this system work without a username. We were trying to kind of bypass the entire username password system. And unfortunately, we ended up we decided to use a username to identify the user. And I think that if there was some way to have the voice itself, like if you could write a database query with the voice itself to identify which user you're talking about, which user is attempting to sign in, and kind of bypass the whole username altogether, I think then you have a truly voice-only based platform. And I think that would be an ideal next step. And that kind of requires some thought about the logic of how you would identify which user is attempting to sign in.
Do you want to say a little bit more, Mukil, about why you needed the username?
Sure. So when the user is attempting to sign in, we need to use the Vocalise API to compare the voice sample they record in their sign-in attempt with their voice sample they recorded when they registered first. And so we need some way to identify which voice sample it was that they registered in the beginning. So if I have a database of 1,000 users and a user is trying to sign in, we cannot make the real-time comparison of, okay, they recorded this voice sample when they're signing in. Which exact user is this? We need to compare against many, many, many users to check which user is trying to sign in. So we use the username to do the initial narrowing down and say, okay, this is the exact user that's signing in. This is their exact voice sample. We know what to compare against their sign-in voice sample. And so we can make the comparison. So figuring out that logic would be quite cool.
So in that case, your ideal experience is that you go onto the Bank of America website, for instance, and it just says, click here to log in. On the login, it asks you to describe an image and you just logged in.
Yeah, exactly. So if you did not have to enter your username at all, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and from an accessibility perspective as well, because if you could make it all voice driven.
Exactly. That was actually the initial motivation for us too, to kind of, make this a system that bypass some inclusion biases. And, that was why we didn't want to use a password or a username. And so that would be perfect.
Would you have considered, I mean, if your internship was 3 years long, to have the user state their username?
Yeah, I think that definitely would have been cool. I think it may have been difficult to detect, like if someone had a username that wasn't necessarily a regular word, like if their username was my name, Mukil, perhaps the Cognitive Services API would not be able to detect exactly what I was saying.
Yep. Makes sense.
This is very cool. I think you should make your internship 3 years long. Keep going.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you guys coming to watch.
Yeah, sounds great. Good stuff, Mukil. Very fun stuff.
Yeah, very good. It's really nice to see Oxford Wave technology being used like this as well. Sort of, this is how it's intended, but seeing it built into other systems is really, really good. So nice results. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Definitely a great job.
The end of that. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thanks, Mukil. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Oh, Ajith, will you be able to share the recording with Anil?
Of course.
So I think it's worth him seeing that second part as well. Mukil, I'm really sorry that more of us couldn't attend your talk today, but we were at the start of a conference and we desperately had to allocate staff to rehearsals for that and bits and pieces. So I was pleased I could attend, and I'm really pleased that you recorded it so we can share it. It is cool. Thank you.
Sounds great. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.